Aston Martin's long-running partnership with the James Bond films is one of the most powerful examples of how storytelling can transform a luxury car company into a global icon. And it begins with a simple truth: the brand needed more than engineering to survive. For decades, Aston Martin lived on the edge of financial collapse, building some of the world's most beautiful cars while struggling to sell enough of them. Yet the moment its sleek machines appeared on screen beside the most famous spy in cinema, the company unlocked a kind of invisible economic engine that money alone could never have bought. What looks like pure Hollywood glamour is, underneath, one of the smartest marketing decisions in automotive history. Because the films gave Aston Martin something every luxury brand craves but very few ever achieve: myth. When viewers saw an Aston Martin drifting through narrow streets, outrunning villains, and surviving impossible missions, they weren't just watching a car. They were watching identity, confidence, danger, charm, and aspiration sculpted into metal. And from that moment, Aston Martin was no longer just another British carmaker. It became a symbol of refined power. The economics behind this transformation work on two levels. First, there is the direct commercial value, which is surprisingly small compared to what people imagine. Unlike huge product placement deals today, Aston Martin's early Bond appearances involved modest budgets and sometimes no payment at all. In the beginning, the producers simply needed a car that matched Bond's personality, and Aston Martin needed visibility. The real money came later, not from the films paying Aston Martin, but from the films selling the idea of Aston Martin to the world. Every time Bond saved the day behind the wheel of one, the brand received millions of dollars worth of free global exposure. People who would never sit in an Aston Martin suddenly knew it. They recognized its lines, its badge, its attitude. And even if only a tiny fraction of viewers could buy one, that didn't matter. Luxury economics are not about selling millions of units. They are about selling a dream that keeps the brand alive, even through storms. Second, the films created something even more valuable: emotional pricing power. A normal car company must justify its price with horsepower, safety ratings, and reliability. But Aston Martin's price comes from something emotional: its connection to fantasy, elegance, mystery, and danger. Bond amplified these qualities in a way no traditional advertisement could ever match. When someone buys an Aston Martin, they aren't just buying leather seats or a V12 engine. They are buying a piece of Bond's world, a world where courage looks effortless and style feels natural. This emotional value allows Aston Martin to charge prices far higher than the actual cost of production. The films essentially built an invisible premium into every car, and that premium kept the company alive in years when it would have otherwise drowned in debt. Even more interesting is how the partnership shaped the brand's identity internally. Aston Martin's engineers and designers began thinking not only about performance, but about cinematic presence. The cars needed to look like they belonged in a world of tuxedos and espionage. Smooth lines, sculpted grilles, and minimalist interiors were not just aesthetic decisions. They were economic decisions, guided by the expectations the films helped create. Once the public saw the Aston Martin as the gentleman sports car, the company had to commit to that identity. And that commitment created consistency, which is one of the most powerful economic assets any brand can possess. People need to know what a brand stands for before they decide to invest in it, especially at luxury prices. But none of this came without risk. The Bond films became such a dominant part of Aston Martin's image that the brand had to constantly prove its worth beyond Hollywood. Investors worried the company depended too heavily on a fictional character. Yet even this challenge revealed the power of the partnership, because every time Aston Martin struggled financially, the world still cared. The Bond Association ensured that newspapers reported its troubles, fans debated its future, and investors remained emotionally tied to its survival. Many car companies die in silence. Aston Martin never did. Partly because people didn't want to see Bond's car disappear from the real world. That emotional attachment had real economic weight, attracting new investors, new collaborations, and renewed attention whenever the company needed it most. As the decades passed, the relationship between the brand and the films evolved into something almost symbiotic. The Bond franchise relied on Aston Martin to maintain the character's aura of grounded sophistication, and Aston Martin relied on Bond to maintain its global visibility. Each new film served as a reminder that the brand still belonged to a world of adventure and luxury, even as newer carmakers challenged it. And each new Aston Martin model brought fresh excitement to Bond's legacy, showing audiences that the character's world was not frozen in time but growing alongside modern engineering. The genius of this pairing lies in how subtle it feels. The films never preach about Aston Martin. They never pause to explain why the car is special. Instead, they let viewers feel it. And this is where the real economic magic happens. People don't spend big money on logic, they spend it on emotion. By attaching the Aston Martin brand to a story people loved, the films made that emotion permanent. In marketing terms, the Bond franchise gave Aston Martin a narrative moat, a protective story so strong that no rival can easily copy it. Other car brands can build faster or cheaper vehicles, but they cannot recreate the cultural bond between a spy and his car. Today, the economics of the partnership are clearer than ever. Aston Martin sells more cars when new Bond films release. Its resale values rise. Its brand searches spike online. Even merchandise related to the films, model cars, posters, clothing, feeds money back into the brand's ecosystem. Investors understand that the Bond connection, even if soft and emotional, has measurable financial impact. And while the Bond franchise could technically switch to another car, doing so would weaken both sides. Bond without an Aston Martin would feel like a tuxedo without a bow tie. Aston Martin without Bond would feel like a masterpiece missing its story. In the end, the appearance of Aston Martin in the James Bond films is not just product placement. It is a case study in how storytelling can reshape a company's destiny. The films gave Aston Martin global mythology, emotional pricing power, investor resilience, and cultural immortality. And Aston Martin gave the films an object that perfectly embodies Bond's blend of danger and class. Together, they created one of the most profitable, elegant, and lasting brand partnerships ever seen, not through aggressive advertising, but through the quiet power of narrative. It shows how, in business, the strongest advantage a brand can have is not technology or scale, but meaning.